This will be an episode that's very important for you if you are someone thinking about making a transition to sports media.
Welcome to the Sportscasters Club radio show, where it's all about becoming a better sportscaster and a better sports fan. And now, your host, a man who began his sports broadcasting career way back in 1993, Rick Schultz.
It's common. People sit in their cubicles, they sit at their day jobs, and they think, I would love to be on the radio in sports media. I'd love to be a sports broadcaster. I'd love to be covering games. I'd love to be talking about sports. And that's a very common thing that people feel, especially as they get older in life. And sometimes people are able to make that transition in a great way and build an awesome second half, an awesome career. But there are a lot of considerations you have to think about, and you need a plan. And in this episode, we're going to give you that plan based on our conversations with students over many years. A plan on how you want to think about it, how you want to go about it, and if you're looking to make that transition, we want to help you do so. So stay tuned for the 5 steps to help you make that move into sports media.
If you're enjoying the show, check out our 7-hour online sports broadcasting course. We cover play-by-play, talk show hosting, television, and much more. Visit sportscastersclub.com and click on Online Sportscasting Class.
I am Rick Schultz. Thanks for being here for the Sportscasters Club online radio show. It is a very common theme for adults as they get a little bit later in life. Maybe they're in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, even their 50s and 60s, to look back and wonder, what if? What if I went to school for what I really loved, sports? What if I would have pursued that different career path? And I've heard that so many times over the decades that I've been coaching students, both privately and at different educational institutions. And in many instances, we've had that direct conversation. How can I transition from my career into sports broadcasting? And so we're going to talk about that here today. We're going to go through some concrete steps that you want to take and some of the most important things you want to consider. And this is something that has happened. I mean, think about it. Just in the New York market, if you think about a person like Joe Beningo, who was one of the preeminent sports talk personalities for 20 years in sports media for WFAN, he made that transition midlife. He won a contest at WFAN. He tried out, he sent in some stuff, some tapes, and he was selected. And then he became not only just a sports personality that lasted in New York, but he was one of the best. He went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and he became one of those poster people, the poster child for making that transition mid-career. And so, yes, it can be done. And so let's talk about some of these things. Let's talk about that game plan. We're going to lay out 5 steps because you want to have a systematic way to approach this. You want to have a game plan. And I've seen it happen many times. I think back to, I was conducting an all-day sports broadcasting seminar at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. This was 10 or 15 years ago. And normally when I taught for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, it was on a regular basis, monthly. But this particular session was one day. I think it was like 6 hours. We started in the morning, had a lunch break, and finished in the afternoon. And I had such a cross-section of people that attended that session that day. There was maybe 25 students, and there were college students, high school students, and there were a handful of established, older, midlife adults. In this case, they happened to be male, so they were men, but it happens with females as well. So that's not something that, doesn't happen. But there were about 25 students, and I remember during the first break in the morning, One gentleman came up to me and explained that he was in a business career, but he had always loved sports media and sports broadcasting, and he always wondered what if he had gone to school for it, and what if he had pursued that career path. And he was thinking, you know what, now's the time that I'm really considering making that move. And that was eye-opening for me, because most of the students even to this day, most of the students that I work with at sportscastersclub.com are high school or college age, sometimes early 20s. But most of the students that I coach are of that age, still trying to build a career at the beginning. But this gentleman came to me and he was seriously considering the transition from his business career into sports media. And so that afternoon, we spent a lot of time talking about it with the whole class. And over the years that followed, I've worked with a lot more of those type of individuals and come up with 5 steps. 5 steps that seem to work very well for people considering a transition and then moving through that transition into sports media. Because you've got to go in with your eyes wide open. You've got to know the good, bad, and the ugly. And with my students, I always share that, because you've got to know what you're getting into and know if the time is right. And you've got to be able to self-reflect and know if your talents, your abilities, your station in life, your financial stability, all of those things have to be in place for you to excel and be happy with this transition. So we are going to go through step by step, these 5 steps, so you can make the best decision for you.
Is this the year you want to learn all you can about a sports broadcasting career? Visit our website, sportscastersclub.com, for articles, tips, advice, and a ton of free resources.
Okay, so let's talk about step number 1. You're thinking about making a transition into sports media. The first step you have to consider is why. Why do you want to make the change from your career into sports media? It's funny, you think about this, and in many ways, especially with this scenario I drew up of this gentleman who I was talking to at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting seminar, it's almost like a midlife crisis, where you go out and get the brand new sports car, you get the Corvette and you're driving around. Maybe you're a little flabby, you're going bald, you're not as excited with life as you were, and so you decide to go out and purchase this car to spice things up in the mid portion of your life, the midlife crisis. Thankfully, I don't think I'm there, but a lot of people probably can relate to that. And so the first thing you need to understand is why. Why do I want to make this change? And think about the great book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. Why are you making the change? You really got to reflect deeply about, is there something particular with your career path that you're not satisfied with, you're not happy with? Maybe it's something going on in your relational life. Maybe you're having second thoughts about a situation that you're in, or having doubts about the way your life is played out with your career and personally, your relationships. So you've got to think about why and make sure that it's focused on the right things. You always want to be moving to something as opposed to moving away from something. So if you're in the mid portion of your life, you're considering a transition to sports media, you've got to think first and foremost, is it because I really am a good fit for sports media and sports broadcasting, and I love it, and I'm talented at it, and I've got the abilities to pursue it for all those positives? Or is it because I don't like my boss at my current job, or I don't like my income at my current job, or I don't like what I do currently in my life? And you've got to weigh that. Is it more focused on the positives that you're looking for, or the negatives you're looking to get away from? Because oftentimes when people make career moves based on the negatives they're looking to get away from, they will move to the wrong thing just to get away. And then they'll end up in the same scenario down the road. And think about some of the really excellent people that offer this kind of advice these days. It's people like Dan Miller and the 48 Days brand that he's built. If you've never listened to the 48 Days online radio show and Dan Miller, check it out. He has awesome career guidance and career information. Just he's done this for 20 years is really great. And also Dave Ramsey and his Ramsey Solutions organization. Ken Coleman focuses on careers and building that career you love and that career that's going to fulfill you as a person. So those are just two resources you can check out. And that's where I've gained a lot of my philosophy on career transitions, career moves. And so when it has to do with sports media, think about the why. Think about, are you moving to something or away from something? And if you think you're moving away from something because you're not happy with your job, you don't like your colleagues, you don't like your commute, you don't like your boss, your income, what you're doing, whatever, my suggestion would be focus there, deal with those issues before you think about sports media as a way to alleviate those problems. Because if you make that move for the wrong, it's like a relationship. Let's say you're in a relationship that's toxic and you just want to get out of it. Well, any relationship counselor will tell you jumping to the first available relationship that comes along just to get away from that other one is not healthy, because you're just going from bad to bad. And in many cases, it could be bad to worse. But you've got to have that break from that bad, figure out yourself, figure out where your career is going, figure out what you really want from your career, and then make the move to that next step. So figuring out the why is very important. And I'm sorry to start off with the philosophical, I'm not a counselor, but the philosophical side I think is very important. So that's number one. Figure out the why. Why do you want to make that transition? And coming up, step number 2 is one that many people have a problem with, and it's sometimes a stumbling block, but we're going to hit that one head on coming up next. Are you an aspiring sportscaster or an established sportscaster, or how about just a sports fan? Well, you probably are, which is why you're tuned into the Sportscasters Club online radio show. A great way to get practice, to build a platform, and to become a better broadcaster is by doing exactly what I'm doing right now, hosting a podcast. And the cool thing is, it's really easy. It's really simple. I mean, if I can do it, really anybody can do it. Hosting a podcast now is something that's available to anyone. If you're a beginner or if you're advanced, number one, it's a lot of fun. Number two, it allows you to improve and become better in your craft. And number three, it's a great way to put your name out there and network and build a career. So if you would like to host a podcast, you can do the same thing I've done. And I've chosen to use Buzzsprout as my host. Number one, they're pretty much the easiest one out there. It is so simple to start a podcast with Buzzsprout. And again, if I can do it, you can do it. Number two, they're very inexpensive. And number three, they have all the tools you need to grow your podcast the way you want to do it. You have complete control. So if you're interested in setting up a podcast for yourself, check out the show notes. You can take a look at the process. It's so simple. You can go right on there, click it, and you can be set up literally within a few minutes. It's very easy. If you have questions about the process, you can always send a message to me at questions@sportscastersclub.com. But again, if you're interested in hosting your own podcast, check out the show notes. I'll put the link in here for Buzzsprout. Check it out, and if you have questions, I'd be glad to help as well. All right, the Sportscasters Club online radio show rolls on. Hopefully you've checked out sportscastersclub.com for a lot of the articles and information and free tips that we've compiled there over the past couple decades. It can be a very big help to you. But let's say you've already established the why of why you want to make that transition to a sports media career. The next step is to develop some baby steps to get you there. And the first baby step, people sometimes recoil when I say this, and I've said this to so many students. It's a lot easier for the young ones to hear than it is for the 30-year-old, the 40-year-old, the 50-year-old to hear, but I'm going to say it because it's the truth. The next step in your process is to work for free. Work for free. And you're probably thinking, how can I make that transition by working for free? That's ridiculous. Rick, you don't know what you're talking about. I've got a mortgage. I've got bills to pay. I've got kids in college. Well, it plays in with step number 3 that we're going to talk about in a minute. But you've got to start by working for free. And here's why. As you work for free, you will learn and you will understand much more deeply what the industry is all about. And again, it's a lot easier for someone in their early part of their life to move through this step smoothly than it is for someone later. And that's because they've never made any money anyway. When I first started as an 18-year-old doing news broadcasts for a local country station, the money was like secondary. I didn't get paid at the beginning, and I didn't care. I'd get up at 5 a.m., I'd go to the station, report the news, go do my college classes, and then go back to the station in the afternoon to record the newscasts again. And all I wanted was to be on the radio, and all I wanted was the experience and to learn. And through that, I was able to figure out, okay, do my talents and abilities and interests match up with this career path? Am I good at it? Can I see myself being happy and succeeding? The money was completely a non-issue for me. I had never made any money. I was 18 years old. I was a teenager. And obviously that's when the station was thrilled to have me do this, because I was providing a service for them and their listeners, and they didn't have to pay me. So it was a win for them as well. In fact, the owner of that radio station pulled me aside one day and strongly urged me not to pursue this career because of all the pitfalls that we've talked about, here on this podcast and at sportscastersclub.com. That's a whole other issue. But I didn't follow JP's advice. I did pursue it, and I'm glad I did for so many reasons. But I had to get a feel, and I had to jump right in to see what it was really all about, not getting paid. And then I moved on to a professional baseball team, started working on the broadcast there without getting paid. But it got me on the air. It got me some experience. And I was able to develop a real-world feel of what this industry was about. But I started by working for free. And that is the first step for someone serious about making a transition. Because if you notice, we're taking little baby steps. In step number 1, you develop the why. Why am I doing this? You dip your toe in the water. Then you put your foot a little further in by working for free. You're still working your full-time job. You're still in your normal career, whatever that is. I'm just assuming you're a mid-career professional as someone looking to make that transition. And so it's a nice, easy step to get the feel, get some experience, meet some people, learn a lot more, not from a book or a website but in the real world of sports media. You dip your toe in, you go a little further and work for free. Because a lot of people at that point will say, you know what? I thought this was going to be great. It's not, and this isn't what I want to do. You'd rather find that out now than when you leave your career and then realize, oh my goodness, what did I do? I don't like this. So work for free, get some experience, take that baby step, and that is crucial to you having a good foundation for moving forward with the transition. So we've talked about your why, we've talked about working for free, and we're going to go a little further on that with step number 3 in just a moment.
Have you been searching for a community where you can connect with aspiring sportscasters, established sports broadcasters, and serious sports fans? Are you looking for a place where you can network, improve your skills, and grow your career? Come join our exclusive Sportscasters Club VIP membership community. Go to sportscastersclub.com and click on membership. That's sportscastersclub.com and click on membership. And during our grand opening, use the promo code SPORTS to save 50%. So join our exclusive VIP community today. Visit sportscastersclub.com and click on membership. We'll see you there.
All right, step number 3 is one that I mean, I mentioned some of the people that I follow for the career advancement space, people like Dave Ramsey, Ken Coleman, Dan Miller. One of the things that Dave Ramsey has talked about for years is when you're making this kind of a transition, a career transition, once you've determined that it's a move you want to make, he talks mostly in the financial side of it, but he'll talk about building up your side hustle, building up that transitional aspiration career, build that up to a level where you can make the jump. So he certainly doesn't recommend, nor do I recommend, simply flipping the switch, leaving your career and moving to sports media cold turkey, dropping one and pursuing the other, because that's a recipe for financial disaster. And that's usually the angle that Dave Ramsey comes at it first and foremost with. But he talks about getting that boat as close to the dock as you can before you make that jump. And I think that's a very appropriate analogy when talking about making this transition to sports broadcasting. So let's say you're in that business career. And this is particularly what I told that gentleman 15 years ago at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I said, obviously you're developing your why. You're starting to work for free, getting some experience. Start making some money then as the next step. Start doing it and getting paid. So maybe you can build that up to 25% of your normal income that you need. And then maybe you build that to 50%. And you're getting that boat closer and closer to the dock before you jump, before you make that move full time. You're taking these baby steps. And that's a great analogy that Dave Ramsey's always said. You don't want to just jump and not be prepared and have it fall and crash and burn. So let's say you make $100,000 at your normal business job. Maybe you can build up your side sports media work to half of that. First 25,000, then 50,000. And if these numbers sound high for you, they might be in sports media when you're starting. I don't think it's that easy to go out and find something as someone in a new career in sports media where you can make that much. But maybe your needs are different. Maybe you've got some other side things going. My point is, you're not taking all of your eggs and dumping it in this new basket. You're taking some steps. And so you want to get that boat as close to the dock before you make that full-time move. So depends on your family situation. How many dependents? Do you have kids? Are you single? What are your bills like? All of those things play into it. But the point is to just build up something in this new area before you leave your original. Whatever those numbers are, I use that figure, but it could be any figure. You've got to be able to have a reasonable idea that you're going to be able to meet your financial responsibilities. So you get your boat close to the dock before you make the jump. That's step number 3. So we've discussed the why. We've started to work for free and get the experience. We've started to build up our sports broadcasting career. So we're getting it closer where we can make the transition. And then step number 4, and we're going to talk about making that move coming up next.
Have you ever wondered how you can start a career in sports broadcasting? Do you dream of calling the action and working in sports for a living? We have a great free way for you to start learning about a sportscasting career. Download our free ebook, 7 Tips to Get Started in Sports Broadcasting, plus 3 myths that will shock most sports fans. Visit sportscastersclub.com and click on free stuff to download this book. This resource will help you jumpstart your career. It will also help you decide if you truly want to work in sportscasting. So download the 7 tips to get started in sports broadcasting by visiting sportscastersclub.com and clicking on free stuff. Happy reading.
So obviously we've talked about these 3 steps, and you can see as we progress from one to the next how important that foundation is and starting at the beginning. If you just started at step number 3 and you make the move, you're going to be in trouble. Even if you start at step number 2, and start working for free without determining why, then you don't quite have that foundation set. But let's say you've already determined why you want to do it. You're working for free. You're starting to make some money at some point in sports broadcasting. You're starting to see that what you can make in that field is going to be enough to support your lifestyle, whatever that is. Step number 4 is make the move. If you've gone through all those steps and they all check out, make the move. You've got to have the courage at that point. Now, nobody can tell you if it's right or wrong. It's going to depend on, are you married? Do you have kids? Do you have a house? Are you location dependent? Can you move somewhere else in the country to take an opportunity? Or are you fixated in a certain place because your kids are in school or they're in daycare and you've got family surrounding you, whatever that is. But if everything lines up and you've got a reasonable expectation, it's about playing the probabilities, playing the odds. This is an educated risk at this point, where even if it doesn't work out, you're going to be all right, but you've got a pretty good idea that it is going to work out to a degree. So at this point, I would say this is where you have either some solid sports media employment already underway or in the works or solid already. This is when you make the move. And at that point, you've still gone through this, and maybe this has taken you a couple years to go through these steps. Maybe it's taken you 12 months, 18, 24 months, 3 years, whatever that is. My suggestion would always be slower than faster. But if you get to this point, have the courage, make the move. Make the move. If you still enjoy it, you still want it for all those right reasons, make the move and transition to sports media, because you've taken the time to do things systematically in the right way, and it's time to have the courage and make the move. Now, once you do that, step number 5 is to constantly reevaluate. Always got to reevaluate. So one of my core philosophies in life is that there are very few things that are final, especially in the career field. Because, you've seen the data. Today's young professionals change jobs so much more than 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's very rare to join a company out of college and have the same job for 30, 40 years, get the gold watch, and retire. It just doesn't happen that more. We're much more in the gig economy, where we see ourselves as independent contractors. And that philosophy has always resonated with me, because I am an independent contractor. If I'm working for an organization or a company or a person, whatever the case may be, every day I have the choice. Am I going to choose to work for them, or am I going to choose to work somewhere else? And they have the choice. Are they going to still have their relationship with me or not? Whether it's a company, whether it's independently, that's always the case. So I think having that independent mindset is very valuable as well in the sports media transition. So you've got to reevaluate. Nothing's ever final. Even if you make a choice and you realize later on it wasn't the best decision, you can always course correct. You can always change your direction. But throughout this process of these 5 steps, hopefully you've built that foundation, done it for the right reasons, taken the intermediate steps to build a long, happy, lasting career in sports media. So always reevaluate. And I think a lot of sports media professionals sometimes struggle with this because they get pigeonholed in one area and they're just complacent. Maybe they're working at a certain place, doing a certain duty in sports media, and they're just happy. I really have a lot of respect for the people that are always pushing their boundaries. Think about people like Michael Kay, who was in print media writing about the Yankees, jumped into radio play-by-play, transitioned from there to TV play-by-play, and then also added his daily sports talk show duties. He's constantly pushed and grown as a sports media professional. And so I've got a lot of respect for people like that, looking to do new things, stretch their boundaries, pursue different opportunities in the industry. It's not only how you become more well-rounded, you keep things fresh, you keep things exciting, and let's be honest, you make more money that way. The more valuable you are, the more widely experienced you are in different areas, you're going to make more money. And in sports media, it's hard to make a living at the beginning. It's difficult, especially if you've got a family. Forget it. It's difficult. I've talked about, working 70 hours a week full-time broadcasting for a minor league baseball team, making $18,000, $20,000 a year. This was a while ago, but think about that for a minute. Think about that. So the more you can do, it's only going to be beneficial, but you want to constantly reevaluate and course correct as you go. So we've talked about the 5 steps. When I come back, we're going to recap those and wrap this puppy up.
If you love this radio show, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to share, like, and leave reviews. Your friends will thank you, and they'll think you're super cool.
All right, well, hopefully this has been a helpful episode for anyone looking to make that transition to sports media. Maybe you're thinking about it. Maybe you've always been curious. You've always wondered, hey, I should have pursued sports media. Hopefully this episode has opened your eyes to some of the steps necessary if you really are serious about it. And the steps that we talked about, number 1, figure out your why. Why do you want to make the change? Are you going to something great or away from something bad? Number 2, take baby steps and start by working for free. Get some experience. See how things are in the real world. Money should not be your concern at this point. Getting experience and meeting people and learning should be your goal. That's step number 2. Step number 3, make sure that boat is close enough to the dock. Start actually earning some income in sports media. Start working in the sports media. Start building yourself as a sports broadcaster, a sports media professional on the side of what it is you're going to be leaving. So make sure you're building one up so you have something to jump to that's not just an empty hope. So you start actually doing it. Number 4, when you get that boat close to the dock, when you've got a good feeling, you've got some momentum, have courage and make the jump. That's when you've got to do it. And then step number 5, constantly reevaluate. Consider what you did. Consider your move. Was it the right thing? Do you want to course correct? Do you want to change approaches? Move to a different area of sports media or away from sports media altogether? Constantly reevaluate, because you don't want to end up, if you make the career move, let's say in your midlife, let's say you're 40 years old, you make the career jump to sports broadcasting. You don't want to end up 50 years old wanting to make the change again to something else. So constantly reevaluate. And hopefully these 5 steps have been helpful. So if you know someone who's looking to jump into sports media as a high school student, college student, or someone making that change in midlife, please share this episode with them. Hopefully they will pick out some nuggets. And then certainly contact us at sportscastersclub.com. You can always email at sportscastersclub@gmail.com. And we'd be glad to work with you further. There's a lot of information, free stuff on the website with our books, our courses, all of the materials you've heard about. So this has been a fun episode. I hope you've learned a lot. And until next time, I'm Rick Schultz saying so long.
Thanks for listening to the Sportscasters Club radio show at sportscastersclub.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you will never miss an episode. And thanks for liking, sharing, posting reviews, and spreading the word.